If you're over 65 and wondering whether your intimate life is normal, I need you to stop what you're doing and listen closely. What I'm about to tell you could transform your relationship and give you the confidence you've been missing. I'm Dr. Sarah Williams. There's a question that countless seniors ask me in private, a question filled with embarrassment and worry. Doctor, how often should we be intimate at our age? Are we normal? Are we doing something wrong? And here's the truth that almost no one talks about. According to recent research from the National Poll on Healthy Aging, over 73% of adults aged 65 to 80 are interested in sex, but nearly 40% feel ashamed to discuss it with their partners or doctors. This silence is destroying relationships. But today, that changes. In my 25 years of caring for older adults, I've had thousands of these conversations. Conversations that happen behind closed doors because so many seniors believe they're alone in their concerns. But you're not alone. And today, I'm going to share the truth about intimacy after 65, backed by real research and real stories. This information could change everything for you. The couples who learn what I'm about to share report feeling closer, more connected, and more confident than they have in years. And it all starts with understanding what normal really means. Let me tell you about Robert and Helen. They were both 68 years old, married for 42 years, living in Charleston, South Carolina. Robert was a retired engineer, Helen a former elementary school teacher. They loved each other deeply, but something had been bothering them for almost 2 years. Their intimate life had changed. What used to happen once or twice a week was now happening maybe once a month, sometimes less, and both of them were worried, though neither wanted to say it out loud. Robert thought something was wrong with him. Helen thought Robert wasn't attracted to her anymore. They were both silently suffering, each convinced the problem was theirs alone. They felt isolated, ashamed, and afraid that they were the only ones experiencing this. But they weren't alone, not even close. Neither wanted to hurt the other's feelings by bringing it up. The silence was slowly destroying what they had built together over 4 decades of marriage. One evening after a particularly tense week, Helen finally broke down. "Are we normal?" she asked Robert through tears. "I feel like we're the only couple our age dealing with this. Maybe something's wrong with us." That conversation brought them to my office, and what I told them that day changed everything for their relationship. Everything. "Doctor," Robert said to me when they sat down in my office, "we used to be so active. Now it's once a month if we're lucky. Is that normal for people our age? Are we broken?" I could see the pain in both their faces, the fear, the shame. These were 2 people who had loved each other for over 4 decades, and now they were sitting in front of me wondering if their relationship was failing. I looked at them both and said something that made Helen start crying with relief. We reviewed major studies on sexual activity in older adults, and what Robert and Helen discovered shocked them. They weren't abnormal, they weren't broken. They were absolutely, completely within the normal range. Research from the University of Michigan's National Poll on Healthy Aging surveyed over 1,000 adults aged 65 to 80. The results showed that sexual frequency in this age group varies enormously, and all of it is normal. About 40% of sexually active seniors report being intimate 2 to 3 times per month. Another 30% report once a month or less, and about 30% report once a week or more. That means the range of normal is incredibly wide. From once every few months to several times per week, all of it falls within typical patterns for healthy older adults. Robert squeezed her hand, and for the first time in 2 years, they both looked relieved. But I didn't stop there. I showed them more research. Studies published in the Archives of Sexual Behavior show that the average frequency of sexual activity for couples over 65 is approximately once to twice per month. Some couples are more frequent, some less. But here's the key finding that changed everything for Robert and Helen. Frequency alone doesn't determine satisfaction or relationship quality. In fact, research shows the opposite. Quality, communication, and emotional connection matter far more than how often you're intimate. Robert and Helen left my office that day with tears of relief. "We've been torturing ourselves for 2 years," Robert said, thinking we were failing somehow. "Nobody talks about this. We thought we were the only ones, but they weren't, and neither are you. If you're watching this and nodding along, wondering if your intimate life is normal, I want you to know you're not alone, and you're probably doing just fine." Now let me share the 3 most important truths about intimacy after 65 that every senior needs to know. But before I do, I want you to understand something crucial about aging and intimacy. Your body at 68 is not the same as your body at 40. That's not a failure. That's not something to be ashamed of. It's simply biology. Hormone levels change. Blood flow changes. Energy levels change. Medications affect libido. Medical conditions affect function. These changes are normal, natural, and expected. But here's what so many people don't realize, and this is critical. These changes don't mean your intimate life is over. They don't mean you're broken or failing. They just mean your intimate life is different now. And different can still be wonderful, connected, and deeply satisfying. In fact, many couples report that intimacy in their 60s and 70s is better than it ever was in their younger years, because now it's about connection, not performance. It's about quality, not quantity. Robert and Helen learned this, and by the end of our conversation, they had a completely new perspective. So here's the first truth. Normal is a wide spectrum, not a single number. There is no magic frequency that defines a healthy, intimate life after 65. When Robert and Helen came to see me, they were comparing themselves to an imaginary standard. They thought all other couples their age must be intimate multiple times per week. They thought their once-a-month pattern meant failure. But the research tells a completely different story. A comprehensive study published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine followed over 3,000 adults aged 60 to 85. The results: sexual frequency varied dramatically, and all of it was normal. Health status, medication use, relationship satisfaction, stress levels, and individual libido all played roles. Some couples were intimate 3 times per week. Others were intimate once every 2 or 3 months. And here's the remarkable finding. Both groups reported similar levels of overall relationship satisfaction. The study's conclusion was crystal clear. Frequency is far less important than quality, communication, and mutual satisfaction. What matters isn't how often you're intimate. What matters is whether both partners feel connected, loved, and satisfied with their relationship. Research from the New England Journal of Medicine confirmed this with their own survey of over 3,000 adults. Among sexually active individuals aged 65 to 74, frequencies ranged from less than once a month to several times per week. The majority fell somewhere in the middle, all normal, all healthy, all satisfying to the couples involved. When I shared this research with Robert and Helen, their relief was visible. "You mean we're not supposed to be keeping up with some schedule?" Helen asked. "Exactly," I told her. "There's no schedule. There's only what works for you and Robert. Normal is a spectrum. And wherever you fall on that spectrum, if you and your partner are satisfied and connected, you're doing just fine." But here's something even more important that I discovered in my conversation with Robert and Helen. They had stopped being intimate partly because they felt pressure to perform at a certain frequency. That pressure was killing their natural desire and connection. Every time they thought about intimacy, they felt guilt, anxiety, and inadequacy, so they avoided it altogether. The very thing that could bring them closer was pushing them apart because they had attached false expectations to it. This is incredibly common among older couples, and it's completely unnecessary. So we removed the pressure. I told Robert and Helen, stop counting, stop comparing, stop judging yourselves. Focus instead on connection, affection, and communication. Be intimate when you both feel genuine desire and connection, not because you think you should or because it's been a certain number of days. Within 2 months, something remarkable happened. Robert and Helen reported feeling closer than they had in years. And ironically, their frequency increased slightly to about twice a month. But more importantly, their satisfaction increased dramatically. The pressure was destroying us, Robert told me. Once we let go of the idea that we had to be intimate a certain number of times, we actually wanted to be intimate more often. It stopped being a task and became a joy again. And that leads us to the second truth. Quality matters far more than quantity. One meaningful, connected, intimate experience per month is worth more than 10 rushed, disconnected encounters. When I asked Robert and Helen to describe their intimate life before it decreased in frequency, they admitted something surprising. Even when they were intimate twice a week in their 40s and 50s, it wasn't always deeply satisfying. Sometimes it was rushed. Sometimes it felt like an obligation. Sometimes one or both of them wasn't fully present. They were going through the motions. But now, in their late 60s, when they are intimate, everything is different. It's slower, more intentional, more focused on connection rather than performance. They take their time. They communicate about what feels good. They laugh together. And when I ask them to rate their satisfaction with individual encounters, they actually rated their current experiences higher than their experiences 20 years ago. This isn't unique to Robert and Helen. Research is increasingly showing this pattern. Sexual satisfaction in older adults often increases even as frequency decreases. A study published in the American Journal of Medicine found that adults over 65 reported higher sexual satisfaction compared to middle-aged adults, despite lower frequency. Why? Because older adults tend to focus more on emotional intimacy, communication, and quality of experience rather than performance metrics and frequency. They're less concerned with how they look and more focused on how they feel. They're less rushed and more present in the moment. Robert told me something profound during one of our follow-up visits. When we were younger, intimacy was often about release and routine. Now it's about connection. We take our time. We talk during and after. We laugh together. We're not performing for each other or trying to impress. We're just being with each other. And honestly, Doc, it's better now in some ways. It's more real, more us. Research from the Global Study of Sexual Attitudes and Behaviors confirms this. Emotional satisfaction during intimate activity was actually higher in adults over 60 compared to younger age groups. But quality isn't just about the intimate act itself. It's about everything surrounding it. The conversation throughout the day, the affection, the small touches, the hand-holding while watching TV, the kiss on the forehead while making coffee, the sense of being desired and appreciated not just during intimacy, but always. Helen shared something beautiful with me. Now, when we are intimate, it feels like we're celebrating our marriage, not fulfilling a duty. There's no pressure, no performance anxiety. We're just two people who love each other sharing something special. Now, the third truth is perhaps the most important one, and it's the one that changed everything for Robert and Helen. The third truth is this: communication is more powerful than any medication or technique. The couples who thrive intimately after 65 are the ones who talk openly about their needs, desires, fears, and changes. Robert and Helen had spent 2 years suffering in silence. Each was worried, each felt inadequate, but neither wanted to hurt the other's feelings by bringing it up. The silence was creating a wall between them that grew thicker every day. When they finally had that conversation, when Helen asked through tears, "Are we normal?" it opened a door they'd kept closed for too long. And what they discovered on the other side was a deeper level of intimacy than they'd ever experienced. I asked them to do something that felt uncomfortable at first. I asked them to have regular conversations about their intimate life, not during intimate moments, but during calm, neutral times, over coffee in the morning or during their evening walks. I want you to talk about what you enjoy, what you miss, what feels different, what you're worried about. No judgment, no pressure, just honest, loving communication. Research published in the Journal of Sex Research confirms this approach. Couples who communicate openly about intimate issues have significantly higher satisfaction. One major study found that communication quality was the single strongest predictor of intimate satisfaction in older adults, even more important than physical health or frequency. Robert and Helen started having these conversations. At first, it felt awkward and uncomfortable, but gradually it became natural, even enjoyable, and what they discovered transformed their relationship. Helen learned that Robert's decreased interest wasn't because he didn't find her attractive. It was because a new blood pressure medication was affecting his function, and he felt embarrassed and ashamed about it. Robert learned that Helen wasn't pressuring him for more frequency. She just wanted to feel desired and appreciated, which could happen through affection and conversation throughout the day, not just during intimate moments. Once we started talking, everything changed, Helen told me. We realized we'd been making assumptions about what the other person wanted and needed. We were both completely wrong. Just talking about it honestly brought us closer than we'd been in years. They made changes based on their conversations. Robert talked to his doctor about his medication and switched to a different blood pressure medication that didn't have the same side effects. They scheduled intimate time when Robert's energy was highest, usually on weekend mornings rather than late at night when they were both exhausted. They incorporated more physical affection throughout the day: morning hugs, holding hands while watching TV, quick kisses in the kitchen. So Helen felt desired and cherished even when they weren't being fully intimate. Within 3 months, both Robert and Helen reported feeling more satisfied with their intimate life than they had in years. Their frequency increased slightly to about twice a month, but more importantly, their emotional connection deepened dramatically. The quality of every interaction, intimate or not, improved. They felt like newlyweds again, but better, because now they had the wisdom of 42 years together, combined with a renewed appreciation for each other. "I got my wife back," Robert told me during a follow-up visit, "and I got my husband back," Helen added, squeezing his hand. Studies show that couples who focus on quality over quantity and prioritize open communication report higher levels of relationship satisfaction, emotional intimacy, and overall happiness. A research study in the Journal of Marriage and Family found that older couples who prioritized emotional connection and honest communication had significantly higher marital satisfaction scores regardless of intimate frequency. So the three truths are clear. Normal is a spectrum. Quality beats quantity every time. and communication is the foundation of everything. Let me tell you where Robert and Helen are now. They're 70 years old. They've been married for 44 years. Their intimate life isn't the same as it was when they were 30, but they don't want it to be. It's better in different ways, Helen told me. We're more patient, more kind, more focused on each other's pleasure and happiness. We don't perform, we connect, and that's more valuable than any number of times per week or month. Robert and Helen now volunteer at their church's marriage enrichment program. They share their story with other older couples. They tell them, don't suffer in silence, talk to each other, get help if you need it. There's no single definition of normal except what works for you and your partner. Now I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine 6 months from now, you've had honest conversations with your partner about intimacy. You've let go of false expectations about frequency. You've focused on quality and connection instead of performance and numbers. Imagine feeling confident in your intimate life, knowing that wherever you fall on the spectrum of frequency, you're normal and healthy. Imagine feeling closer to your partner than you have in years, not despite the changes, but because of how you've navigated them together. This isn't fantasy. This is Robert and Helen's reality right now, and it could be yours. Here's what I want you to do. This week, have a conversation with your partner, a gentle, loving conversation about your intimate life. Not during an intimate moment, but during a calm, comfortable time. Over coffee, during a walk, wherever you feel safe and relaxed. Ask each other, how do you feel about our intimate life? Are you satisfied? Is there anything you need more of or less of? What can we do to feel more connected? Robert and Helen started with one conversation. That was their first step. It led to more conversations, more understanding, and ultimately to a deeper, more satisfying relationship than they'd ever imagined possible. If this information opened your eyes to the truth about intimacy after 65, would you give this video a thumbs up? It helps me reach more people who need to hear this message. And please, share this video with someone you love. This information could transform their relationship. I'm Dr. Sarah Williams. Thank you for watching.